Good afternoon, everyone. Happy October 11th, and thank you for tuning in tonight. My name is Mariah Katayev from the Department of Emergency Management and Security, and we have a special guest tonight on our webinar. We have Jessie Tamayo here from Fairfax County Fire and Rescue, and she's going to tell us all about cooking safety as a way for us to give time to and awareness to Fire Prevention Week, because that is also this week, correct, Jessie?
Yes, that's correct.
And, we're getting really close to Thanksgiving and all the holidays that happen in December. And when families are together and having fun, I'm sure it is not uncommon, unfortunately, for kitchen fires to happen.
No, not at all.
When we have families together, they're happy to see each other. They shouldn't be doing this, but unfortunately, I'm sure sometimes people try to drink while cooking, and that's really dangerous. So I'm really glad that we're able to do this before the holidays really get rolling, to give people awareness ahead of time of what not to do.
That's right. Yeah.
So Jessie, we are really glad that you're here today because you are the subject matter expert for fire. We are happy to have you and happy to listen to you. And this is really your wheelhouse. So please feel free to take it away and do what you do best.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you guys enjoy this presentation and this topic. As Mariah said, we will be talking about cooking safety and fire safety as well, how to prevent those things from happening. The reason why it's so important to talk about cooking safety is because cooking is the main cause of home fires and home injuries. There are reasons why this happens, just distracted, right? Distractions. So that's actually the leading cause is unattended cooking. And that could just be because we're multitasking, because we're distracted by different things. And most of these fires actually occur because of the kitchen stove. And we'll talk about what other fires and how to prevent those. But it's so important to know the importance of being present while you are cooking. It sounds so basic, right? But there are actually things that we should keep in mind. So you can prevent this from happening to you. First of all, be alert, right? Be alert of your mood, of how you feel. If you are sleepy or if you've consumed alcohol, don't try to cook, okay? Even check your medications, because some medications actually can cause some kind of drowsiness. So you want to make sure that when you're getting ready to cook or you are cooking, that you are actually prepared mentally and physically to be able to cook. If you can't, then by all means order some food. It's never a bad thing to order pizza on a night in. Also stay in the kitchen. Again, that multitasking is what gets a lot of people as well. You get busy with kids, you get busy with the pets, you get busy trying to cook too many things at once, right? So it is important to stay in the kitchen while you are frying, boiling, grilling, broiling food. Even if you leave the kitchen for any short amount or any amount of time, make sure you turn off the stove. Even something as simple as when you're done cooking, removing whatever you have that you just cooked from the burner because it's hot, especially for those electric stoves. Those electric stoves are proven to actually be hotter than the temperature that they're set to. So it's important to be mindful for while cooking, not to have any food just sitting there after you're done cooking it. And also, if you're simmering or baking, roasting food, check it regularly. Don't just forget about it. Even if we say, hey, I'm starting at this time, looking at your watch and trying to just keep an eye on it, try to use a timer. Try to keep a timer around. I always use my phone. I always I have a separate timer, and then the one that's on the stove. Use a timer. Don't try to be the chef. Don't try to be a top chef. Nobody is grading you. you can use a timer and keep anything that can catch on fire away from your stovetop. This is probably something that happens more often than not. Most of us maybe don't want to admit, but we keep, whether that's plastic wrap, paper towels, around the stove. Once we are done preparing food, we have to make sure that that area is clear before moving on to actually using the stove or even the oven. We want to prevent a fire from happening, especially, if we're cooking and we just want to wash a dish real quick. You never know what can inch its way to the stove. So be mindful of that. If you have a small cooking fire, it's always important that as you're cooking, especially on the stove, you have a lid nearby. Even if you're not frying anything, it's always good to keep a lid as you cook, because if anything happens, you have the lid and you can use it to slide it over the pan, and that'll automatically turn out the fire because you are taking away its oxygen. The thing with fire is that it's made of many different components, right? It's chemistry. So you have to take away the oxygen, which is what makes it grow, in order to turn it out. So turn off the burner. Then after you slide the lid over the pan, turn off the burner and remove it from the heat. All right, so you don't want to give it reason to stay hot. Make sure you remove it from the heat. Leave the pan covered until it's completely cooled. Now, the next part is if you cannot contain the fire, don't try to fix it yourself. A lot of people feel responsible while they're cooking or not even cooking, just in general, to save their homes. But in reality, you're putting yourself at risk, and you're making it also harder for emergency personnel, the firefighters, to be able to help you and be able to to put out that fire as soon as possible because you're there, right? So if you cannot contain a fire, and because everybody has a different degree of what small is, right? If you know that you cannot handle that fire, don't try to. There's people who are professionals who do this for a living, who are trained to do this, and they will put out the fire. So just close the door, get out, close the door, and call 911 from a safe place. Don't call it from inside of your house. And we'll talk more about those things later. Another thing to do related to the kitchen is also unplug your small appliances when you're not using them. A lot of people don't know this, but those electrical fires can happen easily just because of any malfunction. So in order to prevent that from happening, and just using energy too, unplug those small appliances when you're not using them. And also make sure that those appliances are actually plugged into the wall, not by an extension cord or anything like that. You don't want to overcharge the electrical outlet. So make sure that you have it directly plugged into the wall. If you're not using it, unplug it and then put whatever you are using into the socket. You don't want to overdo it. Another thing to keep in mind related to fire safety is to keep a kid-free zone. This is at least 3 feet from the stove and anything that has hot food or hot drinks. A lot of times Mariah brought up family and get-togethers. So a lot of times we use those burners. You want to make sure that kids stay away from there, that they're not able to reach those things. We use them a lot of times when we get together, and so then it's important to be mindful of who's around and where we're placing those things, because that can cause a burn, and that's just not a good time for anyone, especially for children, but definitely just not a good time for anyone. So you want to be mindful of where you put those hot drinks, that hot food, and also who's by your stove. It's important to teach children that they can get hurt if they're in the kitchen with you, and it's important for them to just kind of be in a safe area. Never hold a child while cooking, or never hold a child while cooking. Again, it's just one of those things you have to really teach your children to not be close, right? To respect that distance from the stove. It's not worth it risking your child's life, risking your own life while you're cooking, and having someone get hurt because they got too close or something sparked. Wear tight-fitted, rolled up shorts or short-sleeved sleeves when cooking. So be mindful of what you're wearing. As much as it's maybe comfortable when we're at home, you don't want to wear pajamas or robe while you're cooking. You want to be mindful and wear clothing that is tight, just because you don't want anything getting caught. You don't want anything being in your food as you're cooking it. Also, another thing to be mindful too is to wear an apron. I can't tell you how many times I've been cooking something and it just splashes up and it lands on my clothes, like whether it be grease or a sauce or something. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so thankful that I'm wearing an apron. So make sure you wear an apron, that you can't control that burn. It's more so related to the burns than it is to fire. And so this is an important message that is something to keep in mind as you teach yourself and you teach children, you teach family members. Stop, drop, and roll is related to when you get fire on your clothes. So you want to stop what you're doing and go on the floor and roll over wherever the flames are. So if my sleeve catches on fire, I would cover my face, I would get down on the ground, and I would roll on my front side where the flame is. So just be mindful. A lot of kids get confused with this message, and they think stop, drop, and roll is something that they should do when there's a fire. That is incorrect information. Please do not teach your children that. Don't teach any child that. That is related to when you catch fire on your clothing, not to when there's a fire in your home. Make sure that you use the microwave safely. Double check your cookware. Make sure that the manufacturer says it's safe to use in the microwave. The last thing you want to do is to cause a fire in your microwave. Also, if you have teenagers, people who are learning to cook in your household, remind them that aluminum should not go in the microwave. And also be mindful of the porcelain cookware as well, as some of it can have aluminum on it. So read the back of just all your cookware to make sure that it is microwave safe. If there is a fire in your microwave or in your oven, some of the things that you'll want to do is turn off the oven or the microwave immediately. Keep the door closed. Again, it's that chemistry component. You don't want to give air or oxygen to that flame, because what's going to happen is that it's just going to grow stronger and bigger. So keep it closed. Unplug the microwave if you can reach the outlet. If you can't, then just forget about it. Just make sure you keep it closed. And then afterwards, have the equipment checked and serviced before you use it again. All right. So for a quick review on what we've just gone over before we head to the next few things that I want to talk about, we're going to watch a quick video. Not sure. There we go.
ESFI's Home Cooking Fire Prevention Tips. Cooking is the leading cause of home fires and fire injuries. Ranges or cooktops cause 62% of home fires. Learn how to stay safe with these simple tips. Keep anything that can catch fire away from your stovetop. Always unplug countertop appliances when not in use. Make sure you have and test GFCI receptacles in your kitchen to prevent shock and electrocution. Double check that everything is off when you finish. Prevent fires by keeping your oven and stovetop clean of grease and dust. Never leave the kitchen while cooking. Never cook while sleepy, drinking alcohol, or taking medication that makes you drowsy. Never disable a smoke alarm while cooking. And never use a cooking stove to heat your home.
All right. So there's just a quick review of what we've talked about. I do want to touch on a few things that go along with cooking safety and prevention. It's so important to have working smoke alarms. I know so many people talk about how annoying it is when their smoke alarm goes off and they're in the middle of cooking, just even the simplest thing. But working smoke alarms save lives. And that's kind of why I want to touch on it, because there are some tips that you can use to help you if that is your situation. So first of all, smoke alarms should be inside and outside of every bedroom and sleeping area for those people who nap in the living room, and on every level of your home. That includes the basement. A smoke alarm should be on the ceiling. Technically on the ceiling, and should be at least 10 feet from the stove. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in your kitchen, but it can be right outside of your kitchen. And you want to make sure you keep a good distance. If you're gonna put a smoke alarm anywhere, make sure that it has enough airflow circulation around it. So not like very next to the wall on the ceiling, but make sure that air can flow properly through it. And people who are hard of hearing can use special smoke alarms that have strobe lights and bed shakers. So you can get my information later to request request these kinds of alarms. But it's a really great resource to have, an important one if that's something that's useful for you. Test your smoke every 10 years. Now, also change your batteries twice a year, when the time changes, but for sure, change your smoke alarms every 10 years. Smoke alarms have an expiration date. If you take it down from the ceiling, you check the manufacturer's date. For example, it says 2013, right? Today, that smoke alarm would be expired, or in this year, that smoke alarm would be expired because 10 years have passed since the manufacturer's date and it needs to be replaced. That means if you decide to still use it and only change the battery, you run the risk of not making it out of a fire, because you can't guarantee that the smoke alarm will sound if there's a fire in your home. And that's quite a big risk to take if you choose not to replace it. So be mindful of that. That being said, Fairfax County has a wonderful free smoke alarm program where you can request free smoke alarms if you live in the county. The fire department, all you have to do is submit a form, but the fire department will come out there when they can, because they're still in service during this, and they will go ahead and install however many smoke alarms you need, not how many ever you need. If you don't know, it's fine. They will go ahead and let you know how many you need, and they will install them for you. And again, that is free. This is mostly a resource for people who can't afford them, because we know how expensive they can be. But also, if you are just short on time, if you're short on money or whatever it is, it's better to have a smoke alarm than not to have a functioning one at all, or to say you're going to do it later and then just kind of forget about it. So this is definitely a great resource that I encourage you to take care of. Even though you can say that this is not related to kitchen safety, It definitely is, because at the time of a fire in your house, part of the prevention in cooking safety is also having a family escape plan, being prepared with a plan for when something doesn't go as you wanted to, as you've planned. If you can't contain that fire with a lid or whatever it might be, you want to make sure you have a plan in place in order to move forward. You have to know what to do in an emergency, and so does your family. So make sure you have 2 ways out of every room. Make sure you have a meeting place. Make sure all your windows open. If you have 2 levels in your home, it is okay to close the door and use the door as a barrier and wait at your window for emergency personnel to arrive if you cannot escape. So that's some important information. Make sure your family members know what the plan is. Practice it. You don't know what's going to work for you as an individual or your family members until you practice a plan. So please, please, please practice that. Just a little bit of information before we head out. Home Fairfax, according to the National Fire Prevention Association, only 1 of every 3 American households have developed and practiced a home fire escape plan, a family escape plan. While 71% of Americans have an escape plan in case of fire, only 47 have practiced it. Again, you don't know if your plan is a good plan, if it works for you and your family, unless you practice that plan. So also 1/3 of American households who made an estimate thought they would have at least 6 minutes before a fire in their home would become life-threatening. The time is available is often less, and only 8% said their first thought on hearing a smoke alarm would be to get out. The estimated time to get out of a burning home or building is about 2 minutes, believe it or not. It's not even 3 minutes. With all the synthetic material we have nowadays in our home, that synthetic material burns up very quickly, which means that you don't have a lot of time to get out of your home. So again, this is why, even though this is not related necessarily to cooking, it is important to have a plan in place in case if something does happen where you cannot control a kitchen fire. Again, if the alarm sounds, get out and stay out, crawl low and go if there's smoke, and call the fire department from your meeting place. Do not call the fire department from inside of your home to let them know that there's a fire. Get out of your home first and then call. And that is all I have for today. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Jessie. And while you were talking, I was thinking of all the things on how this directly relates to me, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that has an easier time comprehending something if you can connect it to something in your life. And it made me think about the fact that I actually have this ceramic mug that has a silver outline on it, and it says that it's not microwave safe. And I am sure I'm not the only person that has put mugs in the microwave. So honestly, I try not to use that mug so I don't run into that situation, but it's just such a great example on how easy it is to accidentally put something metal in the microwave.
Oh yes, a microwave is a dangerous thing if you don't use it correctly.
It really is. And this also made me think of when I was in my childhood home. We actually did have a fire in our kitchen, but believe it or not, it was the dishwasher that lit on fire. And I was a small child at the time, but from what I remember, what happened is a disposable chopstick ended up in the heating element in the bottom. And that's just another example of, unfortunately, fires can happen in such creative ways that we really need to be, we really would need to be smart about it, and we need to prepare ahead of time.
Yeah, and it can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter age, race, or anything. This is relatable information no matter what phase of life you're in. This can literally happen to anyone.
It can, and it's terrifying to think about. And the part about, getting distracted by children or pets is so true. I mean, family gatherings, when you're together, you don't want to be thinking about that stuff, but you would rather prepare and think about that stuff than have to end your family gathering immediately due to an emergency.
That's right.
We just want everyone safe, no matter how much not fun it can be to tell children that they need to take a couple steps back. We would rather them be upset and safe than
That's
happy and in danger.
yes. It's not worth it.
No, it is not. And I also want to say that I never thought about the fact that your smoke alarm expires outside of the battery itself. So I've only lived in the home that I've lived in a little under 3 years, and I have never checked the expiration date on that. So you just gave me homework.
Wonderful. Yeah, a lot of people do not know that smoke alarms expire in 10 years, and it is so important to know that information. I went to an event a few weeks ago, and everyone who kept coming just didn't know, and it's pretty wild to think that people have been living in houses for 20 years and haven't checked their smoke alarm manufacturer date.
I mean, I haven't. I can't judge them. I admit it.
It happens.
Could you just take a second to maybe describe the difference of sound of a low battery smoke alarm to a smoke alarm that is going off? Because I think those are two really important differences for people to know.
For sure, yes. So a smoke alarm that has a low battery or it's expired as well will chirp. When you go to change the battery because you think that's maybe what it is initially, and this has happened to me in my apartment as well. I've changed the battery and it still keeps chirping. It means that the smoke alarm in itself is just dead, and you need to change it. A lot of people here don't recognize that that's what the sound means, but that's what it means, and it's time to change the whole alarm probably if it still continues chirping. A regular beeping alarm sound means that it's still functioning, and that's why you should still check them every month. It sounds like such a task that kind of gets swept under the rug, but it's so important for it to happen. You need to make sure that those alarms are working because they will save your life if anything happens. You can't plan these things ahead of time, so it's important to be prepared.
Oh, I mean, completely. Like you were saying, this is something that can easily get swept under the rug in the chaoticness that is just life. I mean, when things get busy, it can be hard to remember these small but so important things like this.
Exactly.
Another thing that I wanted to ask you to mention is just any advice you have for storing fire extinguishers or using fire extinguishers or anything of that nature related to the kitchen.
Yes. So we don't necessarily, and it kind of goes with that slide of trying to handle fires on your own. We don't necessarily encourage people to have fire extinguishers because the first thing that I'm going to tell you is, do you know how to use one? If you don't know how to use a fire extinguisher, then having one won't do you any good. And then on top of that, depending what the cause of the fire is, you might have the wrong one. So there's that. A lot of times as well, they expire. You have to change them out. You have to make sure that they are still able to be used. And then other times they're just not accessible. A lot of times people store them under the sink, but then as you buy things, they get pushed all the way to the back. And when you have a fire, you're not going to be thinking clearly. I will tell you that for a fact. You're not going to be thinking clearly. That's just a natural human reaction. And being able to reach all the way back there is not going to be helpful. So if you do want to have one for your own safety, if you feel like you're capable, you know how to use it, then make sure it is in an accessible place, in an accessible location. Preferably, I would say not under the sink. I would say even somewhere visible, where you can see it all the time and be reminded that it's in there.
See, I never thought about those expiring either. I am learning much. I'm glad I'm learning it before any bad situation happens, but it can be a lot to hear at once,
Yes.
I do think anything related to emergency planning or preparedness, I love the idea of it being in plain sight. because no matter how confident or calm you think you are, when it is chaotic, it can be really easy to forget things. And I think you brought up a great point with that, with the fire extinguisher. I mean, it is easy to forget things that you think are second nature when you're in your fight or flight mode.
Yes. And especially if something is out of sight, it's out of mind, you know? In that moment, you're just going to be like looking at the fire. You probably have the fire extinguisher, but if you haven't seen it in a while, it's probably you don't even know where it is. It's just a natural human reaction, and we need to give ourselves some grace in that, and be able to have that in account as we're thinking about prevention as well.
I could not agree more. Is there anything else that you would want to say to the people watching today? Or if someone is watching and is like, hey, this is a lot of information at once, what is the one thing you would want someone to take away from this time?
And related to cooking safety, just make sure that you're alert. I mean, the simple fact of being alert while you're cooking is already so much progress. Being thoughtful, being intentional, things will come to you as you are getting ready. You're like, oh, maybe I should wear an apron, or oh, I need to use a timer. You know,
Mhm.
just the simple act of being intentional will get you to be safe and be mindful of being safe with your family.
So just, be in the right mindset to cook and limit distractions and try to be fully present in what you are doing, it sounds like.
Correct. Yep.
Way easier said than done, but completely worth the effort and time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Jessie Tamayo, thank you for being here for Fire Prevention Week. And to those watching, whether live or recording, thank you for taking the time to watch this. I am Mariah Kataya from the Department of Emergency Management and Security, and we will see you next month.